Democrats painfully aware that in tough times, it's easy to blame the party in power. Republicans know that, too. They're hoping to capitalize on it. Jake Berliner is a deputy policy director for NDN. That's a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. David Winston is Republican strategist and a former director of planning for House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. All right, so, Jake, wasn't this supposed to be the summer of recovery? Isn't that what it was dubbed? And I remember the vice president coming out and, touting at the beginning. And here we are. It's Labor Day weekend. What's going on?
Well, I think we can all agree that the economy is not where we want it to be. People are still hurting out there. And Democrats aren't where they want to be in the polls either. But I think you're going to see the president, the vice president, his economic team doing what you just reported they were doing, which is going out and talking about their significant accomplishments. I mean, the economy it's inarguably in a much better place than it was 18 months ago, and they've done some pretty impressive things in their time in power. So I think you'll see them continue to talk about that, and I think voters will respond over the next 2 months.
David, union folks, the middle-class people that we mentioned in the introduction here before we began this discussion, a reliable vote for Democrats usually. Are Republicans making headway this time around?
Well, sure. I mean, like everybody else in this country, union voters are concerned about the economy. And I have to say, having the president go out and talk about the accomplishments he's made in terms of the economy is sort of like a football team being down by 30 points but talking about all the first downs they made. I mean, the problem that this president has is people have lost confidence in his ability to manage this economy. Again, going back to, he said it would, if the stimulus passed, unemployment wouldn't go above 8%, and we've now seen 16 months in a row of 9% or higher. And Biden said this is a recovery summer, and we've lost 283,000 jobs during the recovery summer. I mean, the problem is they've lost confidence, and that's a huge opportunity for Republicans. But we have to answer that question as
Jake,
well. What's our plan?
Sticking with the football analogy that was just tossed out there, and here we are coming up on the start of a new season. Momentum is so important, and heading into an election, you want to have that momentum. Do Democrats have any momentum right now? I mean, it seems like they've lost their mojo, no?
Well, I want to agree with something that David just said, that it's really now on Republicans to prove that they have a plan to govern. You see the president out there laying out the Democratic plan, and Republicans, if they want to increase their power in Washington, really have to prove to the American people that they have a plan to make their lives better and to make the economy better. And so far, we really haven't seen that from the Republicans.
What about momentum heading into the midterms? Do Democrats have any?
Well, I think you see the president going to Cleveland this week because he sees a big opening. He sees that John Boehner gave a speech there a week and a half ago that had no new ideas and would increase the deficit by over $4 trillion. We looked at the numbers. And so that opening is a big source of momentum for the Democrats, and I think you'll see that played out in the next couple months.
We've heard from John Boehner. We've heard from some other Republicans who have put out some pretty concrete ideas for what they would do differently if they were to assume power in the House. Do we need to hear more concrete ideas from Republicans, though?
No, I mean, Republicans have to answer the question, how are we going to grow the economy and create jobs? I mean, I absolutely agree on that point. But I would also suggest that what John Boehner laid out in his speech was, in fact, remarkably different in terms of the way it's being portrayed. Look, he's basically doing the tax cut policy of John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan, right? But Democrats, because they have nothing to say, all want to point the finger at Bush. In fact, what Boehner laid out was a relatively clear direction that is dramatically different from where this president is taking the country. And we know that doesn't work because, in fact, if you take a look at the 30s and what happened in terms of the Great Depression, he's trying to implement those same policies, including the Herbert Hoover tax cut increases that Herbert Hoover passed in 32. The president is about to do that on this economy. I mean, the fact is this guy does not know where he wants to go in terms of the economy. The American people know that, and I agree, Republicans do have to offer an alternative.
Jake, President Obama, when he was running for office, he was able, it seemed anyway, that he was really able to tap into something. Not for all Americans, obviously, he didn't win 100% of the vote, but for a lot of Americans, he tapped into something that spoke to people. Is he tapped out now? It just doesn't seem, to a lot of people anyway, like he's really speaking to the concerns. I mean, we did a poll, Fox News did, and we asked people, what are you extremely concerned about? And it seems like everything that people said they were extremely concerned about had to do with the economy, had to do with the size of government. Is the president really able to address those concerns?
Yeah, I think he absolutely is. You know, he's been talking about the economy. He's going to continue to talk about the economy. He's talking about the struggle of everyday people, how for the last decade you saw, everyday people had their wages stagnate, incomes decline, and they really weren't able to get ahead. And so you see the president putting himself on the side of everyday Americans and putting forward plans to help those people get ahead. So I think he is moving forward, and I think he's offering a credible plan.
David, the Democrats have to have something up their sleeve, don't you think? I mean, they're not going to go down without a fight. Here we are,
yeah.
Poll after poll, indicator after indicator, all spelling bad news for the Democrats. There's got to be some kind of surprise headed our way, don't you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, part of what happens is clearly they're attacking Republicans, and you do that when you have nothing to say about yourself. You attack the other party. Republicans did that in 2006. I know that they realize that they've got to change this dynamic, but when you go to your basic philosophies in terms of how you look at the economy, that being Keynesian economics in terms of let's put a lot of money into government and that'll stimulate the economy, that hasn't worked, and so they're sort of struggling where to go next, and they don't know at this point. And right now at this point, look, I'll give you a simple example. When Obama's talking about not allowing the tax cuts go through in terms of those making over $250,000, he's negatively impacting about half the small business income in America. Right? He knows that's a problem, and so I think they're just sort of flummoxed at this point in terms of what to do.
So maybe, Jake, that's the direction when we talk about tax cuts and the Bush tax cuts that are about to expire. The largest tax increase in history is facing the American people. This is true, and voters know about it, and the president knows about it too. Maybe that's the October surprise, an extension of the Bush tax cuts.
Well, this president certainly isn't opposed to tax cuts. The stimulus actually included the broadest tax cut for working people in the history of this country. But I think if you want to talk about track records, which is what I think you're going to see over the next 2 months, you see a president who saved the country from falling off the edge, from falling into the second Great Depression, versus a party that has no new ideas and, saw a lost decade where people weren't able to get ahead. And I think voters, when they hear people like John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan out there talking about ideas that aren't very convincing, they remember why they voted out the Republican Party in 2006 and 2008. So these next 2 months are going to be pretty interesting, and I think you'll see some credible plans from the Democrats, and I hope you see some good plans from the Republicans.
Well, I agree with you. They will be very interesting, and we'll be covering every minute of it, and we appreciate both of you coming in on a holiday weekend, no less. We'll have you come back in when it's not the holiday, and you don't have to cancel any barbecue plans that you have. Jake Berliner and David Winston. Gentlemen, thanks so much.